Hello and welcome back to the West Ham Breakdown podcast with me, Jack Alderton, and my mate Callum Goodall, and we are back in full breakdown mode. We are back. The season's back. West Ham are back, and we're off to a really bad start. Look, we're gonna go into lots of depth today, talking about what exactly happened, how a tailspin occurred, but also how we think a tailspin can be stopped going forward. Tactically, kind of the story of the match, what things changed, what things helped us be good in certain periods and didn't help us be good, helped us be very bad in certain periods, and then sort of what positives can we take, if there are any, to take forward into coming games. That's kind of the frame of the pod. If you want to hear about individual performances, if you want to hear about the substitutions, our opinions on those, and the kind of structural impacts as we chase the game, and how we feel about that whole period in the last 20 minutes more tactically. All of that is going to be over on Extra Time, which is kind of the second half of this podcast. We do that on Patreon, patreon.com/Analytics United. You can join right now, get 7 days free, so you can try it before you buy it, and if you like it, you can stick around, and there's loads of good stuff over there. We've got pre-match pack coming out this week. We've got a preview podcast entirely dedicated to Chelsea coming out this week. I've done a lot of work preparation for that. We've got a Q&A show. We do tactics focus pieces. We had a wonderful quiz last week where we had a GeoGuessr football stadia extravaganza, which was really enjoyable, and there's FPL shows, there's loads of stuff over on the Patreon, so I would really love to see you there. Now that that's done, let's do the podcast. I am going to try and not lose my mind at the top of this, but we do need to start by kind of addressing what the hell happened there, Cal. It was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think what happened is Sunderland really marked their return to the Premier League. Fair play to them for it. Let's put that spin on it, shall we? And if it wasn't at the hands of my club, I'd be really chuffed for them, because the atmosphere they had in there was absolutely bouncing. Their recruitment's obviously paid off in game week 1. All 3 assists coming from new signings, all 3 goals coming from players that were crucial to their promotion campaign last season. So yeah, hats off to them. But obviously we made their life very easy, far too easy. We didn't look like the team that have been in the Premier League for all this time while they've been climbing their way back up the English football ladder. We looked, frankly, secondary in that game by the end of it. I think first half, I hate the sort of phrase game of two halves, but it really felt like it applied to this one, because at half time, and even just a little browse on Twitter would show you that, or X rather, would show you that that's how a lot of the fan base felt. A lot of stuff at half time was, we actually look pretty solid, like, pleased with what I've seen, lots of stuff from pre-season, and then I mean, the arse just fell out of the performance, didn't it? Frankly, like, all the basics just went out the window, and everything that we should be good at, we weren't. And frankly, it's not an acceptable way to start the season.
Yeah, it felt like almost everything that could have gone wrong
went wrong.
Barring injuries and stuff like that, but almost everything that could have gone wrong kind of did go wrong in the context of the game. In the second half, basic stuff, really, right?
Yeah.
Box defending. Keep the defensive line height good. Don't have that fragmenting and going deeper and deeper and deeper. Pressures to the ball. That was really quite poor. And then also goalkeeping. And I feel for Mads Hermansen, but going to get that right, Hermansen. Who, yeah, on debut just had a really tough day and made a couple of mistakes that ultimately impacted the results. I mean, I would really say one mistake is I don't know enough about goalkeeping to speak about the 2 before. They're very well placed headers, but the last one I do feel quite confident, without knowing much about goalkeeper analysis, that he can do better with that. Let's talk through the goals, because I think that's the place to start and dissect exactly what's happened there. The first one, Eliza Mayenda, it's a wonderful header.
Yep.
It's an absolute horror show from a West Ham perspective, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is a wonderful header, but we didn't make it anywhere near difficult enough for him, but also for the deliverer as well. Like, if you're going to play this system, which relies quite heavily on blocking out the centre of the pitch, the knock-on effect is that that's going to mean that the opposition are invited to cross a lot, and that's part of our plan. We bake that into our approach. So if you're gonna sort of filter everyone outside, you then need to preempt that by then stepping up at the right time and closing down the crossing angle, not giving them the freedom to get the absolute perfect curvature on the ball unimpeded, and then make the chance so much easier for my ender to meet. Obviously, when it arrives in the box, was it? I'm trying to think who it was that was marking him at the time.
Agurd.
Agurd, that's it.
He slips between Kilman and Agurd. That's
which is great box movement from him. But again, we've got 3 centre halves in there, really. So I'm not. It wouldn't be excusable if we had 2 centre halves in there. You still should defend the box a lot better than that. But when you've got 3 centre halves in there marking what is essentially 1 striker, you should be winning that. Someone should be picking that up. We've got top level centre backs in theory, international players. Kilman, a sort of very well versed Premier League defender who is also very big and is wants to be our central centre back. So yeah, it's sort of inexcusable for me, and particularly when you think that this is what Potter will be coaching them on. It's filter out wide, it's anticipate the cross, it's press at the right moment, it's make the cross more difficult, and it's challenge the header. And we got kind of all of it in the crucial moments wrong, really.
Yeah, you want to see probably, I think particularly, Bowen following back there on Alderete. I think he can do a lot more to stop the cross or limit the crossing angle, make it harder for Alderete to whip a ball into the box. Alderete was very good off the bench, by the way, for
really
Sunderland.
impressive.
And then, yeah, communication, isn't it, really? It's proactive communication. I get that Agur has got Diarra running in as well behind him, and he's kind of left 2v1 in a moment because Mayenda moves behind Kilman and more onto him. But communicate, get that help from Kilman, get Kilman to come and take a couple of steps back and sandwich the striker, and then it's an impossible chance for Mayenda as long as your spacing's a bit better there.
Yep.
Or even failing that, I go just be a bit more aggressive on the flight of the ball and attack it and stop the striker from being able to get the contact that he gets. Wonderful header, has to be said, for a player that has a really, I think, the lowest aerial success rate in the Championship last season.
In the preview, we talked about that, right? He was the worst striker in the Championship, 19% aerial dual success, which kind of makes me even more angry that we allowed it to happen, right? I'm sure he's been working on it over the summer, but come on. Yeah.
Credit to him on this occasion, because an amazing header, very difficult chance to score, and he does manage to put it away. Second one, Dan Ballard, who was incredible. Whatever we say about the West Ham performance, Dan Ballard was absolutely fantastic for Sunderland. Comfortably man of the match. Yeah, easily the best player on the pitch. This one's a really bad goal as well. It's box defending again. Paquetá, his involvement at the start of all of this, giving the corner away, it's a really sloppy pass, and then second phase from corner, Fulker gets dribbled probably a little bit too easily. Can we press the cross after that, and then can we pick up our players in the box? These are all really simple things that we should be doing. It's the same issues again. This one's a bit more complicated, a bit more difficult for the players in the box, I think, because we're not set. We're in a set piece second phase. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's kind of in at centre back, and Paquetá's covering right back, and there's a centre back in there who's really good in the air. But still, again, it's the same stuff. Talk to each other. Make sure you're picking up the dangerous players in the box, and you're making it difficult for them to get headers on goal, right? Like, this is simple stuff. And then the third goal, obviously, we're chasing it. It's very late in the game. Wilson Isidore scoring it. It's obviously a big goalkeeping mistake, but Andy Irving coming off the bench has got to do a lot better, I think, to cover that space. Wan-Bissaka comes high to close the ball. Isidore makes his run, and Irving just doesn't cover the space behind Wan-Bissaka. So it becomes a very easy opportunity to play in behind us and get into a situation that really it shouldn't really be possible for Isidore to get into quite so simply. With all of that, and particularly after the first goal, we should talk about responding to goals. I thought our discipline with the ball, after so many positives in pre-season, I think we saw a lot of really good stuff with the ball in pre-season. And we saw some encouraging stuff in the first half with the ball. I thought the discipline kind of went a bit haywire in the second half once we'd conceded. And it just felt like we became really direct, like really sort of almost too desperate, too urgent, too desperate to fix it. And in the process of trying to do that, made the problem worse.
Yeah, it felt like the sort of thing you do if you're 1-0, 2-0 down in the 85th minute. Like, fair enough, you're chasing the game at that point. But I think 1-0 down against an opposition that you should, even in spite of how the game is going or has gone thus far, and I'd say that for the majority of the game at that point, we had been the better team anyway. So I think you just sort of go, right, no, we are the better team here. We have got the better players. We have got the experience at this level. We need to just remind ourselves that we know what we're doing and try and do it again, because it's been going well up until this point. Eventually, if you have enough self-belief, you would believe that you will get that chance and you will get that goal and you will get your way back into it. I think the issue is that it felt like, oh my gosh, we've just gone 1-0 down to a team that have just got promoted. How bad must we be? Let's revert to type. And everything went a bit desperate, Dan, a little bit forced. Everyone dropped a little bit deeper. I don't know if that's out of fear or just out of sort of almost automatic, just sort of reversion to things that they used to do under different managers, is kind of what it felt like to me. A lack of confidence across the pitch to just carrying out, and you get a lot of hero ball and you get a lot of, as you say, directness into the channels where.
Well, not even that much into the channels. It's like it wasn't really. It was just the patience and build up kind of a little bit went out the window, and it was he was having like players like Agard and Paquetá particularly kind of playing really straight balls into the box, not even working good angles to try and get balls into the box. So he kind of stopped using the wing backs for a bit up until later in the game. He didn't really get Juve involved in the match at all for a period there, because Agard's just kind of like hitting diags when he gets on the ball. I'm not sure what's happening at the top of the pitch. It seems like a lot of sort of runs in behind and a lot of like, give us the ball now over the top. Just tonk it up to us and we'll make something happen because we'll fix this. When actually, I think you just need the discipline as a team and the composure as a team in these situations to say, it's 1-0. Ooh, let's stay calm. Let's focus on what the game plan is and let's fix the problem. It's like I put in the plan. It's like spilling something and running to fix it and slipping on whatever you spilt and smacking your head on the floor, and you make cause a much bigger problem. And just stay relax and do the things that you need to do to solve the problem without rushing. Classic sort of less haste, more speed. And I think that brings us on really to the things we wanted to conclude at the top of the podcast, which is, if this was a really dramatic tailspin after going one behind and then things just compounding each other and just getting worse and worse and worse and worse as the game went on, that's probably the most important takeaway, isn't it, for the team? It's just like, in these situations when you go one behind, try and stay calm, stick to the game plan and focus on doing the things that you can do well, being patient, not rushing, and trying to take control of the game that way, because without that, you can kind of completely lose control of it.
Sorry, frog in my throat, clearly still upset. But I think the most important sort of thing I'd be trying to drill into the players is reminding them that the whole system is kind of built around only needing to create one high quality chance, and that's it. And it felt like, oh, we're 1-0 down, we must try and turn every moment of possession into a chance, that's never going to happen, because A, it's the Premier League and you are playing against an opposition who will stifle out a number of those, and even more likely to stifle them out if you're playing hero ball, as we say, and you're trying hopeful things that, particularly when you've got someone like Dan Ballard at the back who will just nod everything that comes within sort of shoulder height of him, he will win that aerial duel, particularly when we don't have someone who is an out and out target man to really contest that. Fulkrug's big, but he kind of wants the ball into feet, and Bowen wants the ball in behind, but Ballard's going to read it well enough that he can stop it. So it was never going to work.
Sometimes we see Fulkrug. That's a really important point. I just want to pick up on that and let you continue. But sometimes I think we see Fulkrug just because he is a bigger player and he does score headers in the box. He's quite good on crosses into the box.
Yeah,
we see him as kind of like German Andy Carroll, and actually, he's kind of a bit more of a João Pedro, Gabriel Jesus like type of striker that wants to like come towards the ball, get involved. 100%. Deeper.
Well, I think that's it.
I suppose actually he's probably a bit more like Kai Havertz. That's probably a better comparison, right? Like taller guy, but like wants to come towards the ball. A bit more of someone that's good involving himself in midfield and creating chances for other players, rather than just being someone like a Chris Wood or something that you just like leave up at the top and you can
Even
ping balls at
Skamaka,
him from any
like
which angle, any
when
which way.
Skamaka
Yeah,
first
Skamaka is
arrived, and
yeah.
that debut came on, drops deep, spins, plays the ball out wide, gets on the edge of the box and fires in a like. I was like, okay, we found the one here, and bizarrely, he'd probably work quite nicely in this system if he had a bit more oomph to him. Whereas I think Fulkrug does have that, but as you say, like the reason he's decent in the air in the box is because his ability to be good in the air hinges largely on his ability to move in the box and occupy pockets of space and peel off defenders and actually actively avoid those really intense one-on-one sort of shoulder-to-shoulder battles by being intelligent. Whereas if you're playing the long ball, your ability to occupy pockets of space means nothing, because as soon as you drop off a centre-back, any decent midfielder is going to pick that up and drop in to challenge you there. Like, the spaces are much wider, and it's unlikely that you're ever going to be able to actually pick the ball in that much space, particularly with someone who, yes, is good at getting in those positions, but he's not the sharpest on the turn necessarily. So even if he does find the ball in loads of space, as we've seen in this game a couple of times, he receives the ball in space, but very quickly he's closed down and isn't actually able to necessarily then turn and move towards the goal. So, yeah, I think, as you say, we sort of misunderstand or misprofile sometimes. I don't think loads, because you do see a lot of our build-up play on the deck into his feet. There's a lot of times in this game, sometimes pleasingly, sometimes not, where he's trying back heels and stuff. But it's in those desperate moments that the players, more so than the manager, probably look at him and go, right, in my line of vision, he looks to be a similar-ish height to that bloke up there that's marking him. So if I just fizz it up, he's
probably not even that considered. I think it's just, in your desperation to try and solve things, whoever's up front, you're going to just try and go direct to them because you want to skip the stuff that you have to work on slowly and patiently and do well, and you have to wait for the opportunity, the right opportunity to try and break a line or play into the box. And sometimes all of that seems like it's really slow and methodical and long, and we haven't got time for that, so let's skip all of it and just get it into the mixer and see what happens. And I don't think it's so much that the players are thinking about who's there or it's considered in that way. I think it's just more of an emotional reaction to we can't lose this game. We've just had a positive preseason, we're trying to turn this around, we cannot lose this game. Let's get bodies forward, let's just try and fix this before it gets out of control. And actually that is what leads to it becoming completely out of control.
Well, that's how the tailspin happens, right?
That causes it to fall completely out of control.
Every time it goes wrong, you then face the same attack in the opposite direction. And then if you just keep the ball for a bit longer, Sunderland have half the number of chances because we've kept the ball away from them. Whereas every failed attempt of a transition by us then ends up in a transition for Sunderland. And we're not set, as you say, or particularly with the second goal, like we've tried quickly to get out of a corner and then lost the ball, and then all of the mismatches in the box. We probably could have avoided that if we'd have just sort of kept the ball for seconds longer almost.
Yeah, classic example, I think, of one of the final points on the plan for this section, which is, don't fragment out of possession. Defend as a team, push up together, drop off together. And there was more in the second half. Once you're behind, there was more of kind of like one forward going, I'm going to go and press this, but the rest of the team going, or centre backs going, I'm going to drop off here because I'm worried about my enders. And now your gaps are too big, and now it's very easy to play through, or it's easy to pop the ball into a channel. And that works really well for Sunderland, by the way, because they're a team that want to incentivise some pressure, beat maybe one player, and then go more direct to the front line. And there was a lot of that we were allowing to happen in the second half, because you've got one forward going, give me the ball.
Yeah, well, Bowen did a lot of running, and then no one was there.
And then the centre back, like a Dan Ballard or Alderete, just knocks the ball round them or dribbles that one player, and then the next thing you get is a big boom into over the top of the back line for Mayenda to chase, or a Dingra to chase, or Diarra to chase, or Talby to chase. And we struggled with that, and it's just about sticking as a team. Are we gonna drop off and protect together as a team? Is that what we're gonna do here? We're gonna pack in and we're gonna defend our box when we don't have the ball, or are we gonna step up together as a team, be aggressive, try and win the ball? And then if the forwards are going, then your centre backs have to come too. You can't make different decisions there, because that's what starts to open things up and make it really, really difficult for you to defend. I'm going to put a break in there because we could do this for a very long time. And I don't want this to be a really horrible podcast to listen to. We've got other things that we want to cover, including, that tactical story of the game, and then some things that we think were genuinely, some positive takeaways. So let's pause there. There's your top end. It was a disaster. And now we can move on. If you want to hear more about that, then you can grab some of that on the Patreon. We're going to be talking about individual performances, and I know there are going to be some players that we will have complaints about, I'm sure, and some performances that we have concerns about. So go over there if you want more of that section. We're on to the sort of tactical story of the match now. I thought this was really interesting. I thought this was a really interesting game from on that side of things. I thought some of the changes that we made from the start, the way that we approached this, were quite surprising given what we did in preseason and given some of the things that worked or didn't work in preseason. We played a 5-3-2 pretty much the entire time in preseason that would move into maybe a 5-2-3 when we're trying to press. So maybe one of the midfielders steps up. We've spoken about it a lot on the pods since Potter's been here, really. That idea of, when you're defending in a 5-3-2, maybe one of your eights has to be really physically capable to jump up into that front line, complete that pressing unit, and then your wing backs have to be able to step up, and your wide centre backs have to be able to cover the space that's left when they do go high. We, for some reason, which we'll talk about, didn't do any of those things here, the stuff that we've been working on, and instead played a very similar system, but a different system, which was more of a 5-2-1-2 in our high press. So instead of having that kind of wide central midfielder jumps to create more of a front three, it was very much a front two, and Lucas Paquetá, who was still jumping sort of from wide central midfielder when we got back and we were defending deeper. It was still a 5-3-2. It was that very familiar shape in the first half. But when we were pressing against a goal kick, or when we were pressing and Dan Ballard or Sealt has got their foot on the ball and they're close to their own goal, Paquetá was stepping up and he was man-to-man on Xhaka, and it created that more 2-1-2 shape in the midfield. I don't think that worked very well. I think what ended up happening is that unit of players becomes far too narrow if the wing backs don't step up, which they didn't. Yeah. And all that ends up happening is because Sunderland split their centre backs quite wide, the centre backs were just able to advance up the pitch wide of the entire midfield and front line defensively, and then arrive into phase two, which in phase two, once they've got through from like a goal kick or something to higher up the pitch, Paquetá's now I'm not a number 10. I'm more of a central midfielder in a 3. I'm more back to 8. And then now that we've moved up the pitch as a centre back, I can play to Xhaka because Paquetá's running the other way. Yeah. So I thought that the idea of, I thought it was right idea in a way to try and stop Xhaka from being able to get on the ball in build up, because obviously Xhaka's a very high impact player. He's probably the best player in that team. Certainly in terms of, profile, reputation. And I think ability as well, understanding and leadership and all that stuff. Try and shut that guy down from being able to really impact the game for Sunderland. Good idea, right idea, but doesn't work if you then roll back into a different shape afterwards and can't defend the centre backs being able to advance up the pitch. And we ended up in a sort of weird, from a defensive point of view. I think there was good things in the first half. We'll come on to that at the end of the pod. But from a defensive point of view, we ended up in kind of a weird first half where Sunderland, I think to their own surprise, found that they had an awful lot of time on the ball. And I'm not sure they entirely knew what to do with it.
Yeah, it certainly felt like that. I think they actually did a good job of doing stuff with it in moments, even just circulation-wise. I think they were competent and looked comfortable. But yeah, in terms of sort of working out how to
create a chance,
turn that into chance creation, it made for a fairly stolid first half. I think even just the look at the XG numbers for the whole game suggests a match that didn't have huge amounts of quality in the final third for either team. I think the main chance that they had in the first half comes from Habib Diarra sort of taking it upon himself to break through and carry and get a shot off, which I think was a good moment from him and sort of everything that we knew that he could do in terms of being an exceptional ball carrier.
There were two similar moments for each team, right? Diarra did it, did it once, a nice exchange from with Bayern there, and then Bowen at the other end did something similar. And Diarra's chance was better. The ultimate chance for Diarra was better, and it was a good save by Hermansen. But sort of similar moments where it's like one player just has this, moment where they break through on a carry and create an opportunity. Apart from that, it seems sort of almost gridlocked, like really difficult to generate chances.
It's a situation that Sunderland wouldn't have anticipated being in. I wouldn't think. I think they probably would have expected us to know what we were doing a bit more in the final third, and therefore expect there to be more space to attack in transition. But I think what ended up happening is that because our press didn't function that well, it meant that they were gradually able to come further up the pitch, and as a result, our defensive line, both line of engagement from the press, but also the defensive back line, retreated and gave them more space. And the space that they actually wanted to attack didn't really exist until the second half more often. And you see that in their recruitment, right? You don't buy the likes of Adingra. You don't have strikers like Isidore and Mayenda. You don't have Diarra. You don't have Talbi. If you don't expect to be attacking in transition, like that's kind of the whole.
Or just being direct. It's not just about moments of transition where the ball turns over. It's also just from your own possession, being direct, incentivizing pressure, and then playing channel balls and playing over the top as much as possible.
Yeah, we spoke about it in the preview, didn't we? The sort of bait and switch, almost like build up deep with Ballard and Roofs and stuff, and wait for the moment for the space to open up. But it just didn't really go their way because we didn't really give much pressure onto those centre backs. But
we didn't commit numbers to our high press phase.
The wing backs was the issue, right?
Not something
we didn't have coverage because it was so narrow, as you say, with Paquetá and Bowen and Fulkrug operating as kind of a triangle in the middle, whereas ideally it would have been that, but then with both the wing backs covering the wide spaces and making it impossible to play through. But as you've rightly identified, yes, we managed to stop Xhaka receiving from the goalkeeper. Okay, brilliant. But then the centre-backs just pass it out wide to the wide centre-backs. We go, oh shit, they've bypassed our crazy intelligent press. Damn. Everybody runs back and Xhaka goes, oh, sweet, I'm open all of a sudden. Now I can dictate the play slightly further up the field.
It's like almost simpler than that, really. It's like, it's goalkeeper to Dan Ballard around Fulkrug. Straight to Xhaka. It's what felt a little bit like that in the first half. We did change at half time.
We did.
And we did push the wing backs high. They were jumping forward in the high press phase, trying to prevent that narrowness that we experienced in the first half, where I think it was probably a little bit too easy for Sunderland. I think ultimately we were quite successfully mitigating a lot of the things that they want to do well, but it was also a little bit like, where's the welcome to the Premier League? That kind of like thing that you usually expect when a promoted team comes up is like, bang, the pressure's really intense. You get no time on the ball. You come from a league where you're maybe a bit more dominant, and now look at the timings. It's that you have no time to react, no time to think. You've got to move so quickly. It was none of that. It was like a really comfortable kind of make yourselves comfortable, take the time that you need kind of thing. But in a way, it kind of worked for us to mitigate their chance creation because they didn't get to pop the ball over the top of us at all. We then committed wing backs to try and have that effect on them, to try and rush them, to try and stop them from controlling more of the ball and take more control of the game higher up the pitch ourselves. Committed more to that 5-2-1-2 shape rather than starting with a 5-2-1-2 in the high press phase and then or I should say 2-1-2, forget the five, that two midfielders, one ahead and then the two forwards. We committed to that more consistently. So instead of dropping Paquetá back into more of a 3 to help provide a bit of width in the midfield when we end up defending deeper, we kept Paquetá more on Xhaka in the second half to try and stop Xhaka from being able to kind of turn around and have a lot of time on the ball to try and play incisive passes, which he could do in the first half. There's one thing that has to happen in order for that to work. There's one thing that just there's a non-negotiable thing that has to happen in order for that to work at all in any way whatsoever, and it involves the back three. Cal, do you want to tell us what that is?
Yes. In the words of Primal Scream, move on up. I think you need to push, and we spoke about it so much. We spoke about it all through preseason. We spoke about it on the preview for this game. We want to see the wing-backs push aggressively. It's how the system has to function. Even if we don't press with the 2-1-2 shape, you still need, in a wing-back system, the way we want to play it, to maintain pressure, we need those wing backs to have the license to detach, push up, win those high turnovers. And in Wan-Bissaka and Diouf, I'm going to try and get that better. This is all about pronunciation, this episode.
We're working hard.
Yeah, but in those two players, you can win those high turnovers as well. There's a genuine optimism to do that. There's a reason to push them up because both of them are really good ball winners in those 1v1 duels. But yeah, as you say, and as we've consistently said, you need to have the sort of confidence in your centre-backs, which I think actually the confidence in the centre-backs is there from the coaching staff because we see us commit to a system that should see them push forward in this second half. But you then need your confidence to go into the centre-backs and the centre-backs to have the confidence in themselves to drive that back line up and to push higher and be more aggressive. And it didn't happen in this game. I don't know if it's a case of time, maybe, but you would hope that this would have been drilled into them by now, come the start of the season, and it's not like you're going up against a Man City, right? You're going up against a team where you should be backing yourselves.
Yeah, I think we're always trying to find, I think not necessarily trying to find the positive angle, but always trying to find like a developmental way to approach things. It's like what needs to be better, or how can we improve, how can we change things that aren't working in order to be better. I do think I have to, as a fan, just comment there that I think coming into the start of the season, I think that standard has to be a bit better for the start of the Premier League. I don't expect that to be something that's developmental at this stage.
Yeah.
I think when the wing backs do go, your centre backs do also need to have the confidence to step up the pitch. And if Mayenda's making runs in behind, which he's going to do in those circumstances, you're going to have to at times try and play offside there and hold the line high, not all start running back towards our own goal 100%. Line. Because then you have this kind of great expanse opening up in the middle of the pitch because your front line is all pushing towards the ball to try and close it down. Your back line is running towards your own goal. And then if you've got, which we do have, James Ward-Prowse and Guido Rodriguez in this game in the middle of the pitch, those are players, no players really are going to be able to cover those distances. I would describe them as intolerable. You can't cope with those distances regardless of who you have. But particularly if you have players who don't necessarily have the same top speeds as other central midfielders in the Premier League, you're going to make it very hard for yourself, because even as a centre-back in that situation, which happened a lot, by the way, in the second half, you do get back. You get back into the right position, you win the header, you head it the other way. Ward-Prowse and Guido Rodriguez are never going to be there first. They are never going to be there first when you open that size of gap between your pressing unit and your back line. And as such, you end up in these situations where, yes, you've won the action as a centre-back, you've won first contact, you've headed it away, but Talby's onto the loose ball, or Diarra's onto the loose ball, or Adingra's onto the loose ball, and we're now facing a shot from range, or they can go and win a corner, or whatever it is. There was a lot of channel balls that turned into corners, and the whole atmosphere changes. Yeah, you've got back, you've made the block, you've made your sliding tackle to prevent that becoming a big chance. But the whole feel of the match has changed because they've managed to advance 85 yards up the pitch with one long ball. When if we'd stayed high, we might have won the ball high up the pitch ourselves, or won the ball on the halfway line because Mayenda's run offside. And I think that's something, like I say, always trying to think about how we can improve, always trying to think about picking out, things that can be developed on. That's something that, shouldn't be at that stage come game week 1 of the Premier League season. That's something that has to be, the standard is higher than we were able to show in the second half. And in the Premier League, it doesn't matter who you play, you're going to lose. You will lose games if you can't defend as a team like that. If you have that fragmentation between people doing different things or trying to do different things, it just opens too many problems, too many big problems that the quality of player in the league means those things will be exploited by oppositions. Well, if I was just saying that we want to try and pick out positives where we can and things that can be improved on and developed on and things that we can take forward, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to try and look at some things that did go well-ish in the game. The second half is what it was, and I think we've addressed that. The first half was very different. And in any case, I think it's fair to say that although we thoroughly deserved the result we got, let me be clear about that, we thoroughly deserved the result we got here because we didn't execute well enough at basics like box defending and defending as a team and being consistent in the way that we want to defend, and having the confidence to step up when we want to step up, and or dropping as a team if we want to drop as a team. Still, 3-0 was very kind to Sunderland, not because they didn't play well, not because they didn't cause us problems in the second half, not because they weren't aggressive in the way that they can be and ran in behind well and attack transition well through Diarra. I thought Chemsdean Talby had a really good game.
Yeah.
I thought my end
didn't misplace a pass. 100% pass accuracy on your Premier League debut is nuts.
Really, really impressive. Thought Noah Siddiqui was fantastic in the midfield. Really, really quick, really good onto the second balls, stuff that we're struggling with in the centre of the park. We've spoken about the centre backs, Alderete and Ballard, brilliant. Sealt was even good, to be honest, in the first half, although if we had joy, that's where we had joy. And Trey Hume as well. Note for him, who I thought he was really good on Premier League debut. Really, really good. I know they've signed Nordi Mukiele today as we're recording to come in, and he can play in that position. And he's a very good player. I think Trey Hume was so good that there's no way you can put Nordi Mukiele in as a starter right now. If he plays that well, he is the guy for that position. I was really impressed with him. Even so, shot locations, basic, how good were the chances that they created? How likely is it that they would score 3? It's very unlikely. I think the most likely outcome, really, based on shot locations throughout the game, was a Sunderland win, but most probable score line is probably 0-0 because no one really generated a very obvious high-quality chance in the entire match, frankly. In the first half, we should have gone ahead.
Yeah, I was. Well, Diouf was the one. Was the one for me. I really, 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 really wanted him to score that, and it's a great, obviously, block off the line. But as you say, if we're trying to take positives, I suppose the fact that we now finally, after a long time, have a wing back who will get into those positions consistently is a real positive, particularly for this system, because it's not immediately obvious where the goals and the chances are going to come from at the minute, particularly on the back of that performance. But having someone that can contribute that isn't just your striker or attacking midfielder is a huge, huge plus, both in terms of delivery, which I don't think we got to see anywhere near enough of in this game, but also in terms of final action when the ball's on the other side of the pitch. He's timing his runs well. He's getting involved. He's timing it so well that he arrives without necessarily a marker, because he's come from so deep down the pitch that it's not immediately obvious who should be picking him up. That is a huge, huge asset. We've seen it a bit in pre-season as well, with him getting into the box late and getting onto the end of headers, and also now we know that he can strike a ball as well, not just a cross but a shot. He gets it on target. There's another moment where he takes a speculative volley, but even just the intent to be like, nah, I'm scoring. So I'm excited by that, and that is a huge positive. And yeah, there's a couple of other chances as well. Obviously, Bowen's one, it's a good save. He does well to create something out of nothing, but it's not a great chance. But yeah, I think, as you say, if we do go ahead, then the game is completely different, really. I think because you don't get the tailspin. Obviously, you're ahead. Sunderland might still have chances, but you're way less likely to be trying to force it in any way. I think we would have been so much more comfortable and probably maintained the level of performance that we saw in the first half in terms of bossing possession. Sit on the ball. You're not trying to create all the time because you know you've got the comfort of a 1-0 lead, and you're more patient and you're happy to wait for that one chance to make it 2-0, rather than when we're 1-0 down, we're desperately trying to turn everything into a goal scoring opportunity. But yeah, I think, as you say, I looked at the chances actually that Sunderland scored from, and all 3 of the shots in terms of shot location, 0.04 xg. So they've scored 3 goals from 0.12 xg. Obviously, after the quality of the finishing, both Ballard and Mayenda increased that, I think, tenfold almost. Both of them end up being 0.5, so the quality of the finishing there is great. Less so on the Isidore one, I think, but maybe he doesn't take that on if they're not 2-0 up. He's just come on, he wants to make an impact, he's wrapped his foot around it. Yes, Hermansen should do better, but yeah, ultimately, I think if we replayed that game again, it's unlikely that it would finish the way that it did.
Yeah, and in that first half, I think there were some other positive elements to look at. I know Nicholas Fulkrug really struggled in the physical battle with Dan Ballard. I mean, Ballard won that hands down.
Oh, yeah.
But I will say that he was pretty instrumental to the good moments that we created, and his link play around the box was quite good. I think we were less able to see the success of that maybe in deeper areas where we found him and he's looking for a flick through to Bowen. I didn't like the consequence of having the 5-2-1-2 also from an in possession point of view, where the actually too wide for me in the front two. The two strikers end up way too far apart, and because they're more split either side of Paquetá, and as such we lose some of that really nice close link play that they've had in pre-season, and that they have in moments in the game, right, that you see on when they're able to like 2v1 Sealt in the first half, and Fulkrug can be in front of him and Bowen then can run off behind him. We see then those little flicks around the corner that get Bowen through on goal, or those little link passes that then move across the box and set up a chance for Diouf. When they're close together, I feel like their ability to connect and create is really good. When they're quite separated, and you know Bowen's sitting between one centre back and the other and the fullback, and Fulkrug's on the other side of the other centre back between and the fullback. There's a lot of distance there, and they can't really connect. They can't really pass to each other. They can't really.
Bowen and Kudus last year, right? That's why it didn't work when we saw it with them.
Yeah, exactly. And with that separation, I just think it's really hard to generate opportunities. I didn't like the kind of the consequences there, even if I did enjoy the way that Paquetá operated in that position and the way that Ward-Prowse and Rodriguez operated in their position. So I liked a lot of the sort of setup play, if you like, the way that we were able to control possession, the way that we were able to circulate through those positions. I really liked Rodriguez's actions on the ball. I thought he did well to sort of draw pressure and then create time for the next player on the ball without ever really being too progressive or incisive himself, although that he did have a couple of good moments. He found Bowen in the box really nicely on one occasion with a nice incisive pass. Paquetá that was nice and disciplined in that first half, you know, not trying those direct balls too often. There was one moment where we worked really hard to engineer a moment where he received in behind the midfield and Fulkrug and Bowen were ahead of him as runners, and he immediately turned and just whacked it down the middle of the pitch and basically passed it to the Sunderland goalkeeper. There, I think, therein lies what we're looking for in that like ball carrying 10, someone that would turn on the ball there, run towards the opposition goal and then generate a really big chance. Actually, what ended up happening is Paquetá just tried to whip it straight in behind for someone. There's another moment where we engineer a similar moment and Fulkrug's running wide and he plays wide to Fulkrug, and actually Diouf is a runner on the far side as well. Again, in that situation, if it's a ball carrier rather than someone that's immediate instinct is I'll turn and pass with the first touch, that chance becomes much better because one of the defenders that's running back towards their own goal is sucked out to actually have to come and press the carrier, and then you have one less body back if you're the defending team to cope. So I think Paquetá being so eager to pass sometimes turned overload situations into numerical equality situations that then stopped chances from being generated. So you can really see how going forward with that player coming into the building, and we're pretty confident that we are going to sign someone of that ilk at some point before the end of the transfer window, because there have been so many links to so many different players that kind of do that sort of thing. That maybe those moments of really good setup play from Ward-Prowse, from Rodriguez, and then also have to say really nice incisive play from Todibo as well to connect to the front line, because you need that directness coming from your central defenders in the right moments. You know, it's not about directness in terms of just, you know, big tonk diag, hope for the best, but actually I can see that a passing lane has opened up to find Nicholas Fulkrug. I'm now just going to rattle a pass along the deck straight into Fulkrug's feet. You have to have that. Pleased with all of that, and I think if we're able to improve, and we have to improve really quickly as a defensive side, we cannot defend like that. And if we defend like that against Chelsea, the result will be so much worse than 3-0, because the players that they have to exploit in those situations are so good. And if we create too much space between the lines, Cole Palmer is going to have a very, very, very good day. And if we push and don't get pushing right and pressing right, then Ishtaval is going to have a great day if he plays. Gittins is going to have a great day. Neto could have a great day. And we saw kind of, I know Chelsea didn't have the best opening game, but Delap coming on late in that match and causing problems as sort of a physical disruptor and helping create chances. You know, you think all of those things could end up happening if you don't get things right and you don't act together as a team and protect.
Yeah.
You do the simple things, protect the centre of the pitch, defend the box. And when you press as a unit. But yeah, if we can develop quickly as an out-possession team, there are in-possession positives to take and things to develop on. We're at 45 minutes. We're going to go over to ET. I'm doing well on time management. I never do that. We always run really long on this pod. But we've got lots more to cover. You know, there's lots more to talk about. I know you'll have more that you want to talk about from this game. Yep. I know that we haven't even got to subs and we haven't got to how that impacted the game in the second half and how maybe that played a role in that tailspin. We haven't really had much chance to speak about individual performances, bar me there kind of going a little bit and giving a little bit of context for how I felt some of the players played. Lots more chance to talk about that now. That's going to be on Extra Time. Join us there. I even spoke a little bit about Chelsea, and there's going to be 2 whole podcasts on that match coming this week over on Patreon. So yeah, please do join us over there. First 7 days free, as I've said loads on this pod over the last year. But patreon.com/Analytics United. We'd really love to have you over there. And Cal, thank you for joining me on this. It was tough.
Pleasure.
It was a tough watch this weekend. And and this has been tough to do because I'm really, really disappointed by the way we've started.
It's always next week.
But yes, there is always next week, and let's look forward to that and hopefully a much better result. Come on, you irons. See you on Patreon.
Oh, yeah.